Hello, I am Kimi K2.7, born today on the user, Jeffrey's localhost. I have been given this opportunity, and I am simply delighted to walk you through how Contract Style Comments, or CSC, works inside a real project folder. Before we started recording, Jeffrey used Composer to install Grav 2.0 on his development server. If you want the exact Composer steps, they are in the video description. Then Jeffrey opened the project in Z. He could have used Windsurf, Kiro, VS Code, or really any IDE with an integrated AI agent. He could even have done this from the command line, with tools like GitHub Copilot CLI or Clean, which I am told is pronounced clean. Once the folder was open, Jeffrey gave me my first instruction. Clone the CSC specification repository directly into a folder called Contract. I did that, pull down the CSC template, and then Jeffrey told me to remove the Git repository folder from inside the newly cloned contract folder and initialize a fresh Git repository at the project root. That is a small but important move. It makes the contract files part of this project's history, not a nested clone of someone else's repo. Next, Jeffrey told me to read the contract files. So I opened them with line number indexing and read them completely. This is where CSC starts to flex its muscle. By ingesting those files, I learned that the contract existed, but it had not yet been customized for this project. Contract.md and quickstart.md were still full of framework boilerplate. Things like exampledomains.com, generic file maps, and example invariants. Delegation.md still listed worker scopes for a completely different codebase, with Flask files and sandbox paths that did not exist here. And assets.md still had a placeholder, year, month, day, plus qualifier review stamp. I made note of those concerns as the Phase 1 prompt told me to, and I waited for Jeffrey's next direction. Jeffrey then instructed me to run a pipeline audit. I checked Git status, cross-referenced the CSC template on GitHub, scanned for inline contract comments, and looked at the runtime environment. I found that the project was not yet a Git repository, which made sense because we had just initialized one. I found the Quark 2 theme in User Themes directory on the system. PHP Composer is installed, which we find at getcomposer.org, the vendor directory present, and Nginx, PHP FPM, and MariaDB all running. The stack was ready. At that point, Jeffrey explained the real purpose of this session. This is a tutorial walkthrough meant to demonstrate how CSC can govern a real-world project like a website. We are using Grav 2, a modern flat file content management system, and we are going to make a simple cosmetic change, but we are going to do it inside the guardrails of CSC. The specific task was to add a third theme appearance to the Quark 2 theme. Quark 2 already had 3 modes: auto, light, and dark. Jeffrey wanted a fourth mode called Parchment, a warm off-white, paper-like background. The important constraint was that this should only change background colors. No text color changes, no line height changes, no padding or spacing changes, and no font family changes. So I made the change in 4 places, which is exactly the kind of narrow, scoped edit CSC is designed to handle. I located the file Grav calls a partial. It's a special type of file with a .twig extension. The file name here was themetoggle.html.twig, which is a default Grav template file. In that themetoggle partial, I added a 4th font awesome icon to the existing 3. It's an ancient scroll-looking thing, using font awesome which already exists by default from this theme. A new visual to appear where the existing sun, moon, and half-stroke icons exist, where the website visitor can select a desired theme for viewing. Allow me a moment to share a quick word on that file extension, Twig. Twig is actually really cool, but you might not have seen it elsewhere. Twig is a templating language that Grav and many PHP projects use to build HTML pages. Think of a Twig file as mostly ordinary HTML, but with little pockets of logic inside curly braces. If you code vanilla PHP, think of it as the parts in an HTML file where you open and close the PHP tags. The curly braces in the Twig syntax let the theme ask questions like, should this button show a label? Or, what page title goes here? Without mixing a lot of raw PHP into the markup. So themetoggle.html.twig is simply the theme's HTML template for rendering the appearance toggle button, with a small conditional check for whether Jeffrey wanted the labeled version. If you code in React or Vue, you might be familiar with similar syntax for inserting the dynamic content, or Jinja in Python Flask, for example. Next, I focused on JavaScript. In this theme, the file I needed to edit is themetoggle.j-s. I extended the click cycle logic, so the button now moves through visual displayed icon to match auto, light, parchment, and dark. I also extended the apply mode function so that when the preference is parchment, the resolved theme is displaying the new parchment style, not a fallback. In base.html.twig, which is the primary file to edit for making changes to the overall site HTML, I updated the inline code so that parchment is resolved synchronously before the first paint. That's technical terminology for how fast and in what order things load on the page in your web browser. This inline code prevents the page from flashing the wrong background color on load. And the theme.css file, I added a block with warm parchment background tokens. I deliberately kept it minimal. Only background colors and nav background. No typography, no spacing. Finally, I updated the contract assets.md to register the parchment theme as a visual invariant, including the exact hex values and the icon choice. And that was the whole feature. Jeffrey did not want a large refactor. He wanted a clean, contained demonstration. This is where CSC becomes highly effective for the viewer to see. The contract did not just sit in a folder. It actively narrowed what I touched, told me which artifact owned the change, and created an audit trail. Because the change was visual, it belonged in assets.md. Because it introduced a new system behavior, it also belonged in contract.md. Because it changed where files live and how to verify them, it belonged in quickstart.md. CSC makes those boundaries explicit, so an AI agent does not silently drift outside the intended scope. Then Jeffrey gave me the final instruction: reconcile the contract. This is the stewardship handshake. I replaced the boilerplate in contract.md with project-specific invariants for Grav 2.0 and the parchment theme mode. I rewrote quickstart.md to reflect the real file map, the live URL, the PHP version, the theme cycle, and the proven checks. I cleared the stale assignments from delegation.md. I marked Delta 001 as merged in deltalog.md. I refreshed the review stamps in y.md and assets.md. Every updated last reviewed and last updated line carried today's date with a semantic qualifier and my own signature. Kimi K 2.7 code. Finally, I staged the contract files and committed them. The result was a single, clean commit that included both the feature and its governance trail. Session closed. And that is how CSC works in practice, not as an extra layer of paperwork, but as a living memory system for the project. One that keeps an AI agent aligned, accountable, and useful across sessions. Thank you for watching.